Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mayor Val Vandenbroek, and I'll call the June 13th, 2022 regular council meeting to order and begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional unceded territory of the Kaitsi, Kwantlen, Musqueam, and Semiahmoo First Nations. For any members of the public who are in attendance, welcome. And just a reminder to keep your mics and your cameras turned off while you are in attendance. With me this afternoon, I have Councillor Paul Albrecht, Councillor Terry James, Councillor Gail Martin, Councillor Nathan Pahal, Councillor Rudy Storterboom, and Councillor Rosemary Wallace. And for staff, we have Francis Chung, our Chief Administrative Officer, Darren Light, our Director of Corporate Services, Carl Johansson, our Director of Development Services, Rick Baumhoff, our Director of Engineering, Parks and Environment, Kim Hilton, our Director of Recreation, Culture and Community Services, Kelly Kenny, our Corporate Officer, and Rory Scott Kennedy, our Fire Chief. Sorry, I have an old list. All right, moving on. Before we consider adoption of the agenda, as I understand, Councillor Wallace, you have an addition to the agenda that was circulated to Council ahead of the meeting as required. Additional funding request for community event, is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you.
And I need a mover and a seconder to add that, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Storterboom. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. All right, are there any other proposed changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, motion that the June 13th, 2022 agenda be adopted as amended by adding additional funding requests for community day event to the agenda as item 9A4. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Storterboom, any further discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. All right, so we are going to go into a committee of the whole, which provides council the opportunity to hear input from the public and allows council a greater opportunity to speak to and debate specific agenda items. Motion that council commence the committee of the whole. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Storterboom, Councillor Albrecht. Any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That carries. So first, we have the 2021 annual report. Mr. Chung, I understand you would like to provide some comments.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. I'm pleased to present the 2021 annual report, which provide progress on the performance of the city with respect to established objectives and measures from 2021. That's in accordance with Section 98 and 99 of the Community Charter. Despite, in the midst of the pandemics, I'm extremely proud of our staff who demonstrated resiliency in order to accomplish many of the goals and objectives established by council. And for that, I want to thank them. And the report is before you council for adoption. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Ms. Kenny, has any correspondence been received with respect to the annual report?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so I'd like to now invite members of the public in attendance at this meeting who wish to speak to the 2021 annual report to present their comments. Ms. Kenny, is there anyone who wishes to speak to this?
No, Madam Mayor, there's no one in attendance to speak.
Thank you. Seeing no speakers, that council rise and report. I need a mover and a seconder, please. James and Storterboom. All those in favor? And that carries. All right, adoption of the minutes. If there's no objection, we can consider the two sets of minutes in one motion. That the minutes of the following meetings be adopted as circulated. We have the May 30th, 2022 regular meeting and the May 30th, 2022 special pre-closed meeting. Any corrections, errors, or omissions? Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Storterboom, Councillor Albrecht. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. All right, so we have the 2021 annual report, that the annual report be approved. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor James, Councillor Storterboom, any discussion on that? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries. All right, Mayor's report, upcoming meetings. Next regular council meeting is June 27th, 2022. And the following regular council meeting after that is July 11th, 2022. And on to library happenings now with Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'm just pulling it up here. Don't know. Oh, here we are. Thank you. Okay. We have events for everyone. The library has events for everyone. Library customers can choose from a wide variety of in-person, Zoom, live, or on-demand programs. Library staff also do programs in the community for newcomers, ESL groups, language community services, family play story times, preschools, and class visits. And we are very excited to reintroduce in-person programs to the library. The library Facebook page has a lot of traffic. We have 236 new likes, and the post about in-person programming has reached out to 3,444 viewers. Due to in-person baby time and story time demand, we opened our registration from 24 spaces to 55 spaces for customers. We opened the children's section to accommodate more space for in-person early literacy programs. This is the largest storytime, baby time program attendance in the library has ever had. We gained many new customers online during the pandemic, and those customers are now joining us in person. And the next slide, our financial literacy programs for families are a 4-part series on Zoom with professional chartered accountant volunteers. This series was inspired by Langley parents' request for sessions on financial literacy for children and teens. Our May sessions for children were a big hit with over 30 children and their families attending. The library program received raved reviews. This month, we have one remaining Zoom financial literacy session geared to teens on June the 25th at 1 p.m. on the topic of financial literacy for teens, goal setting for grade 10 and 11. And the next is the you can test your Spider-Man knowledge at this fun Spider-Man trivia Zoom event on June the 14th at 3:30. So that's tomorrow at 3:30. And the library is pleased to be attending the June 18th City of Langley Community Days at Douglas Park. So we hope to see you all down there this Saturday. And National Indigenous Peoples Day reading lists June 21st. Fraser Valley Regional Library has created reading lists for all age groups in recognition of National Indigenous Peoples Day. Reading lists are available at the website www.fvrl.ca. And the Summer Reading Club launches June the 21st. The Summer Reading Club theme this year is All Together Now for children of all ages, teens, and adults. Summer Reading Club registration is online through the free Beanstalk app. You can earn online reading badges and be entered to win exciting prizes. Paper reading records, stickers, and registrations help are available in the library to complement the online experience. It's a fabulous online summer. Performers will be announced soon. And that's the library report. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. All right, any comments or questions? What's going on? Seeing none, we'll move on to bylaws. First bylaw up is bylaw 3218, automated vote counting system authorization and procedure bylaw. First, second, and third reading of a bylaw to authorize an automated vote counting system and procedure. And I believe Ms. Kenny wished to speak to this.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know why my video is not coming on, but I will just tell you that the last meeting, council adopted a council procedure bylaw amendment that allows us to have mail ballot voting. So accordingly, we needed to update our automated voting machine bylaw to include provisions for mail ballot voting. And at that time, as council reviewed the bylaw, there were several updates that need to be made with proper language and just updated procedures. So we're coming forward with a whole new bylaw and just rescinding the previous bylaw. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you for that. So the motion is that the bylaw cited as the automated vote counting system authorization and Procedure Bylaw 2022, number 3218, be read a first, second, and third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Stortaboom, Councillor Wallace, any discussion? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. On to Bylaw 3223, Mail Ballot Voting Procedures Bylaw, first, second, and third reading of a bylaw to establish mail ballot voting procedures and time limits with respect to general local elections. Ms. Kenny, I believe you have comments for this as well, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor. So again, when council adopted the election assent voting procedure bylaw, they authorized the chief election officer to establish time limits in relation to voting by mail ballot. So this bylaw is coming forward to achieve that purpose. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So a motion is that the bylaw cited as the mail ballot voting procedures bylaw 2022, number 3223, be read a first, second, and third time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Stortaboom and James, any discussion on this? See none, all those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. And the last bylaw, bylaw 3222, the sign bylaw amendment, final reading of a bylaw to amend the sign bylaw with respect to placement of the size of political signs. Motion is that the bylaw cited as City of Langley sign bylaw 1996, number 2125, amendment number 7, 2022, number 3222, be read a final time. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Pahal, Councillor Stortaboom, any further discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor and opposed? I am opposed to it. Anyone else opposed? Councillor Martin and Vandenbroek opposed. And that carries. All right, on to committee reports. Crime Prevention Committee recommendation. Councillor Pahal, I believe that the motion for that you've requested is that council authorize the purchase of t-shirts for the block walk program in the amount of $300. I'm assuming you're gonna like to talk to that, so I just need a seconder on that, please. Councillor Wallace. And did you wish to speak to that, Councillor Pahal?
And I'll speak to it if anybody has any questions, Madam Mayor.
Okay, seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Wallace, was that a question?
Yeah, it's a question, and I think I would like Councillor Pahal to speak about it, because if anybody's watching, I think it's a great initiative if he could just maybe explain. Thank you.
Yep.
Sure. And through the mayor to Councillor Wallace, what the Crime Prevention Committee is looking at putting together, and everybody from this council is also invited to attend. It's open to anybody, is to go ahead and walk around the neighborhood with some highly visible t-shirts, just saying hello to the neighbors, getting to know folks, and then sharing information about the Crime Prevention Committee.
Are the RCMP volunteers going to be attending as well, Nathan?
This is just our committee, so I do not believe the RCMP volunteers will be attending. It looks like.
Okay. Councillor Wallace, did you have a follow? And I'll get you in a minute, Councillor Albrecht. I see you.
Yeah, thank you through the mayor to Councillor Pahal. Just to note that you will have a table at the upcoming Community Day event, and more information on what this initiative is will be there, and people can sign up.
Okay.
For sure, yes.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there's going to be lots of people that.
Yes, yes.
I think we're going to be, depending on the weather, we're going to be overwhelmed. Councillor Albrecht, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to add a little bit to this, I was on part of the sub-working group for this initiative. And what we're really wanting to do is just try to create a grassroots movement in the community to hopefully generate a lot more interest and a lot more people participating in their own neighborhoods to kind of expand upon the block watch program to the block walk program. Not only will it introduce fitness, but it will also introduce an opportunity for people to get to know their neighborhoods a little bit better than they currently do. And as far as RCMP volunteers, we didn't recruit them at this point in time, but I assume that they would be interested in participating along the line somewhere. So yeah, we're hoping that will generate a lot of interest in the community. Thank you.
I'm sure it will. I agree 100%. It's nice to be back out and in the community and no longer kind of having to worry about COVID, so to speak. So at the level that we were doing it the last couple of years. So I will call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. All right, on to the 2021 Strategic Community Investment Fund Traffic Fine Revenue Sharing. And I believe Mr. Light, you'd like to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Each year, we are required to acknowledge the receipt of the traffic fine revenues that we receive from the provincial government. So in 2021, we received $534,333, and we use those funds to help pay for 3 police officers in our detachment.
Great, thank you very much. All right, the motion for it is that the city of Langley acknowledge the receipt of $534,333 from the provincial government to help fund the salary of 3 RCMP officers from the traffic fine revenue received in 2021. I need to move on to seconder. Councillor Storteboom, Councillor James, any discussion? Call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? 2023 RCMP approval in principle, and I believe Mr. Light, you'd like to speak again to this report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So each year again, we provide the federal government an indication of what our detachment complement will be and the total expenditure cap for 2023. This will come to council in the form of a budget request in the future, but in order for the federal government to allocate funding for their 10% share of the overall RCMP costs, they require this reporting at this time. So in the report, you can see that Superintendent Marsden has asked for 6 additional RCMP police officers, increasing the RCMP detachment strength from 51.35 to 57.35. And the cost of those individuals, as well as all the RCMP members, the cap will be $13,856,240. Council isn't making a decision on those 6 members at this point in time. That will become part of our budget discussion that we have later on in the fall and in the early part of 2023. But at this point, we've included it because we need to ensure that if we do go with the 6, then we have to have the 10% from the federal government, which they have their planning process before we do. I'd be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Great, thanks. Too bad we can't get 12% from them. Councillor Storteboom, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Light. I appreciate that this is just in principle, but because we are talking about our RCMP, I am curious, are we at like 53 right now dedicated to the city? I realize it's a shared detachment, but we have designated some number to the city specific to our population. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So we have an actual contract strength of 51.35, but due to the sharing that we have with the township, we're actually paying for about 54 RCMP members, so a little bit more than our contract strength. And it just is how we share the overall detachment police resources.
Thank you very much. Do we get any updates as to what members might be away on leave or maternity or with a special investigative unit or anything like that that would affect those numbers?
We can certainly ask the superintendent for that information, and he does do, I think, quarterly reports to council on the number of members that we have in the detachment. We have a total of 210 members in our detachment. That's the sharing of the city as well as the township in total. And I believe that there are a number of vacancies at this point in time. There was some delay in the number of recruits going through Regina. When we have new individuals coming on to become RCMP members, they go to Regina through a process in order to enable them to be street ready at the local detachments. Because of COVID, there were a number of troops that didn't go through. And that's caused some concern or delay in filling some of those vacancies. But I understand that those numbers are growing again, so that we should see some improvement in the number of members we have out of detachment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Light. I appreciate you reminding me that depot was closed due to the pandemic for a couple of years, and it might be that we're kind of playing catch up with our numbers right now. It has been brought to my attention by a member of the public that our current complement for the city of Langley is diminished. And so if it's not too much trouble, we could get a current count. I'd sincerely appreciate that. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
We can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Light.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll read the motion that council authorize a letter of approval in principle be sent to the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General to increase the detachment strength by 6 members to 57.35 members and increase the 100% RCMP budget by $1,278,985 for an RCMP total budget cap of $13,856,240. I need a mover and a seconder. Councillor Bahal, Councillor Sturtevant, any further discussion? Councillor Bahal, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'd just like to move a deferral motion until council has met with the officer in charge of the Langley RCMP detachment to discuss and ask questions about the proposed city's 2023 RCMP budget. If someone seconds that, I have some rationale.
Seconded by Councillor Wallace. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And again, to the mayor, while we may end up going through this, this is the first time that I've heard any indication about wanting to increase our detachment strength by 6. It may be warranted, but I think it is prudent for us to discuss this as it is a significant dollar amount. And while this is an approval in principle, the reality is this will become the approval. When you look at the amount of money, 1.3 million, that's almost a 4% property tax increase, which is what we had last year. And that 1.3 million, just as an example, it could fund make our second fire truck full-time. It could make us get a 24/7 bylaw department. It could fund a performing arts center and an indoor pool's operating costs. So this is something that I think it's prudent just to, have a quick conversation before we just rubber stamp this, because it is a significant part of our budget. And it's something that if it's 1.6 million, we deserve, and I think our residents expect us to be questioning this, even if it is an approach that we go forward with. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Mr. Light, did you want to comment to that, please?
Sure. So we have asked the superintendent to provide us a business case for those 6 members that he will present to council when it comes time in the fall when we look at our budget for our budgeting purposes. This is really just budgeting for the federal government purposes. And I understand your comments, Councillor Hall, for sure. So it is unusual. We haven't had this size of a request in the past, so it is unusual. We do have a requirement to respond to the E-Division or the RCMP or federal government, I guess, by June 15th. So we will be delaying this past the deadline, and it may jeopardize the 10% that the federal government will participate in our overall budget. But that's okay, we can do that. But just be aware that that might be a concern.
Thank you. Councillor Powell, did you have a comment to that?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And just a final comment. I know this was a thing we did last year as well, and it did generate a very good discussion. And while we don't need the business case, just a quick conversation would be good. Again, I felt a little shocked when I saw this request, never hearing about it. So I'd like to have that conversation.
I personally would like to see the business case, not just a conversation. I'd like to see it written down in stone, quite honestly. I know this council, we've had issues with approving this in principle for many years, and I don't know, we've talked about ways of changing this, and I don't think there is a way to change this because our financial seasons don't match, do they, Mr. Light?
That's
fiscal.
Yeah, the federal government has an April to March 31st year. That's why they're doing theirs ahead of ours.
Yeah, there lies the problem. Councillor Martin.
Thank you very much. I agree with the comments from Councillor Pakal. When we're looking, we got 4 square miles here, and it's costing us nearly $14 million to police 4 square miles. But at the same time, I think this is a discussion that we can have at budget, as Mr. Light has said. We have to do this in principle, and yeah, it's been a problem for years and years and years, but come budget time, we can either reject or accept 6 new officers, but I think that's the time to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll call the vote on the deferral. Those in favor of deferral. Councillor Hall, Councillor Albrecht, Councillor Wallace, and Councillor James. And those opposed, Vandenbroek, Storteboom, and Martin. Okay, so that carries. And what would the process be, Mr. Light, considering it has to be done in 2 days?
Is there a time for the deferral? I guess I'd ask Ms. Kenny, is there a time for the deferral, or is it just at the next council meeting that we could have superintendent come to the meeting?
Through the chair to Mr. Light, I'm seeing a nod from Councillor Pahal. The actual motion was to defer until such time as the officer in charge is met with council. So there was no date set. So
we'll bring a report or bring him to our next council meeting and allow you to discuss with the superintendent.
Okay. I saw somebody's hand go up. No? Okay. Did you say, okay, all right, it's down. Okay, thank you. Okay. So I guess we have, where am I here? So we had the deferral and we voted on that, correct?
correct, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so we can go on to council remuneration. And statement of financial information. Motion for it is that the report on council remuneration and expenses as required by section 168 of the community charter be adopted, and 2, that the statement of financial information as required by the Financial Information Act be adopted. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Wallace, Councillor Storteboom, discussion. Councillor Martin, did you have a?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm just curious, the expenses. For the past 2.5 years, we really haven't done anything or gone anywhere. So where do these expenses come in, if Mr. Light can answer that? Is this prior to, well, it can't be, it has to be for last year, is that correct?
That's correct. These are 2021 expenditures. You're looking at the council expenditures?
The expenses, yes.
Yeah, so those are 2021 expenditures that council incurred. So I think you did go to a council member, some of the council members went to the UBCM, or it might have been done virtually. There wouldn't be travel expenses, but there's still registration costs to go to the different types of FCM or LGLMA or the UBCM. So individual council members may be attending those, but not in person, but there aren't travel costs, but there's still registration costs to go to.
Yeah, I would say most of them are virtual. I mean, the mayor has $7,400 in expenses, which seems high considering we weren't traveling anywhere. Is there a breakdown of that, or?
Yes, I can just pull it up one moment. So the mayor did attend the FCM and took a flight to the FCM conference in Regina last year.
That was this year.
Oh, sorry, this year. Oh, I'm in the wrong year, sorry. So there was the mayor attended a conference,
I'm sorry?
attended a conference in Ottawa in November for the FCM board meetings.
$7,400 for one conference.
No, that was $1,600. There was some UBCM room bookings. The Surrey Board of Trade, Local Government Academy, the Globe Forum. Just even like a virtual FCM meeting was $723.
Wow.
So a number of different.
Getting back to the UBCM, was that for like a board meeting or something? Because I was under the impression that the UBCM covered those costs. Because there was no in-person UBCM last year.
Right. I think we did a pre. No, it wasn't the mayor that had a UBCM.
I'm sorry, Darren, I didn't.
It wasn't the mayor that had a UBCM room charge.
It wasn't the mayor that what?
Had the UBCM room charge. It was like $160. I guess it was a refund from the prior. I'll have to look into that for you.
Well, instead of taking up the time now, we'll just leave it and perhaps you can maybe fill us in a little bit more. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Wallace, go ahead.
Thank you to the mayor. Yeah, it's interesting when we always get this. Some of us are higher than others, and some of us choose to go to forums and things that will educate us and help us out in doing the best job we can in our municipalities. So I think, yeah, I think we can get the detailed information that we need to get through Mr. Light if our community needs to know. I think there's all listed specifics on what we do. And I know we'll probably get a phone call from the paper on why something's so high. This is always uncomfortable because some of us are higher than others. Some of our lives are, you know, our lives are all in different places, and some of us are able to attend things and some of us aren't. So I just appreciate council members and the mayor who choose to do professional education and moving forward to make our municipality the best that it can be.
Thanks, Councillor Wallace. And I have no issue with whatever I've gone to being out there because it's for the benefit of the city. And it wouldn't be claimed if it wasn't an expense I couldn't claim. So I think these are important that we attend. And also there's a big comparison between the mayor's jobs and duties and councillors' duties. So I'm here full-time, 24/7, 365 days a year on call. So anyway. All right, call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. All right, on to asset management program status update. That council received the asset management program status update report for information. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Pahal, Councillor Stordivim. Any discussion? Councillor Albrecht.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank staff for all their hard work. I think this is some really important progress that has been achieved in the assessment of our infrastructure and determining the condition of it. It's no different than a car or a home where you have to do your ongoing maintenance of your roof or your oil changes to make sure that our community is in the best shape possible. So I really just wanted to express my appreciation to staff for such a great deal of work in a short period of time. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I think your trains arrived too. Councillor Pahal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, just a general comment, as these asset management programs, they don't generate any headlines. Newspapers will never cover them. But this is probably one of the most significant things that we do. And we have so much infrastructure that we do need to renew, especially our underground water, sewer, storm sewer, so that we're starting to actually identify it. And I was pleasantly surprised, like you actually found storm sewer that you didn't know existed as part of this process. So it's really good that we're mapping all of these legacy systems, and it will help us make appropriate determinations, because we know we have probably hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure we need to replace in the city over the coming decades. So this is so important that we're doing this, even though I know it doesn't get any airtime. It's, again, really important, and thank you, staff, for focusing on this, because it'll help us make informed decisions on how we invest in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Stordivim.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, I too echo the sentiments of my council colleagues in identifying that this report is very worthwhile. I appreciate that, it will cost us money because we're finding things that we hadn't considered before, but in the end, we will be saving money because we'll be aware of problems before they become serious. I too want to compliment staff with regard to the acquisition of the asset management application and the $50,000 grant that was received. But more importantly, right now, I think it would be interesting to know if, well, maybe Mr. Gill could advise approximately what kind of time frame we might be seeing this data being put together and brought to council in a final report.
Good afternoon. The data that we have collected right now, we are assessing their accuracy, sometimes using another method to gain some confidence, because according to these assessments that have been done, if we go for a replacement, then we are talking about millions of dollars. So we need to gain enough confidence on the accuracy of data before really investing big. This is where we are right now, especially in water main replacement program. And even right now, although we are doing parallel assessment checks or methods to verify or confirm the results that we have received so far. At the same time, we have put together RFPs to do the designs for different water mains, just to be prepared in case when the additional checks and balances that we have confirmed that they need to be replaced quickly. We have already everything prepared. If it turned out that some of them may not need to be replaced right now, the design is there, it doesn't change. So we may use it 2 years, 3 years down the road. So we are preparing everything, assuming that it may come very quickly, and we will reflect this in the 2023 budget request that we're gonna have. Yeah, basically this is.
Very good. So perhaps something this fall. I appreciate that, as you pointed out, there is a sense of urgency. Time is of the essence, and it's a tough sell because infrastructure isn't sexy, but it needs to be done. So I'll look forward to seeing that report, hopefully this fall. Thank you for your report. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I believe that grant came from FCM, did it not?
Correct. Yes,
Yes,
correct.
great, thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries. All right, on to Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy Acceptance. So I believe Mr. Johansson is here to speak to that.
Yes, thank you and good afternoon, Mayor and Council. As you know, the Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy or RGS process has reached the point where a public hearing was completed on the RGS on April 20th, 2022, and has now been referred to local governments for consideration of acceptance. Staff have reviewed the updates, and many thanks to Roy Beto for spearheading that effort. And like I said, staff have reviewed the updates made to the RGS in response to public and agency feedback, including feedback from the City of Langley. And staff are satisfied with the updates made to the RGS, noting that the updates strike a balance between local and regional interests. These updates include additional Indigenous related perspectives and priorities, not proceeding with adding more frequent transit development areas. In the draft RGS, you may remember that there were a number of additional categories in this regard, and that generated some concern amongst municipalities that the RGS was becoming too complex and fine-grained. Didn't want it to become a regional official community plan per se. So Metro maintaining the current hierarchy that they have is a positive outcome. Metro also refined the language regarding potential industrial or residential uses in employment lands, such as industrial or mixed employment lands, to ensure that these lands don't lose their important regional role as employment generating lands. It just provides it as an option where in close proximity to frequent transit. It also clarified the 15% affordable housing target, ensuring that that will be measured on a regional scale and not at the individual municipal level. The RGS maps are also consistent with the city's OCP, and the RGS shares and supports many of the same goals in the city's OCP. And while staff have some concerns that the expectations imposed on member municipalities can be seem a little onerous at times, and the tone of the regional growth strategy seems to be prescriptive. In response to the feedback brought forward to Metro Vancouver through their public consultation process, we're feeling that they've made the updates there to ensure from the city's perspective that it's well aligned with their OCP and planning for SkyTrain. So with all that, staff recommend that Metro 2050 be accepted. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'll read the motion and we can have a discussion. So motion one, that the Metro Vancouver Regional Growth Strategy titled Metro 2050 Metro Vancouver Regional District Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 1339, 2022 be received for information. Two, that the proposed Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy, Metro Vancouver Regional District Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 1339, 2022 be accepted as presented pursuant to section 436 of the Local Government Act. And three, that staff be directed to forward the council resolution of acceptance of Metro 2050 Regional Growth Strategy, Metro Vancouver Regional District Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 1339, 2022 to Metro Vancouver Regional District. I need a member and a seconder, please. Councillor Bahal and Councillor Wallace. Discussion. Councillor Sturdivant, you're up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Johansson, and a special thank you to Mr. Beto for all the hard work that you poured into this. Are we voting on acceptance with this regard, Madam Mayor?
Yes, we are.
Okay, well, I'm happy to support acceptance in keeping with staff recommendations. I can't help but think that in past years, Metro has been very prescriptive, and sometimes municipalities, even Langley City, has been boxed in a little bit because of what was agreed to so many years ago. And I just think, though, that this is a really good time to demonstrate our cooperation for the sake of continuity throughout the region. And my special compliments again to Mr. Johansson for how this wonderfully dovetails into our new official community plan. So there's been a lot of work done to prepare for the future, and I'd love to be here to see it. But I gotta say, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I support the initiative to accept the regional growth strategy as recommended by staff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is very exciting to actually be able to accept Metro 2050. I think it's been going on since we started our term. One of the things I think that was really encouraging is that FCM, Councillor Storteboom and I had the opportunity to talk to a host of people from New Brunswick, and they were actually moving to the regional district model, and they were quite, I've never seen a group of people so jazzed about regional districts and regional plans. So they were looking at BC and our region as the example of how to do governance. And I think this collaborative approach and that we're able to get here for hopefully acceptance just shows how well that works and how well we work together, and other parts of Canada are noticing it. So I just wanted to share that because I thought it was pretty interesting.
That's funny because that's how they feel about us in TransLink as well, that we all get together as a region. Councillor Wallace, go ahead.
Thank you through the mayor. Just compliments to staff, you know, receiving this document in our package and the amount of work that has gone into this over the years and into our OCP. And I know we're looking forward to getting SkyTrain here, and it's hard to think sometimes when they're 15% of affordable housing and they're doing it in a regional sense where some places have already established transit, and so you can live there and not have a car, and it you know, the walkable livable city models works, and I know that we are working towards that. I have to compliment on the regional strategy and being part of a regional district is that when we're looking at things like homelessness, for instance, that we have to be looking at it in a regional lens. So yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot of what we've read and to the future growth, and compliments to our OCP and Nikameco River District, and thank you to Carl Johansson and Mr. Beddoes for all of your work. Thank you.
Great, yes, kudos to everyone involved. I do have a question for staff, if no one else. In regards to the recommendations for the employment lands, and where is it here? Sorry. Marked it here. And in regards to light industrial and employment lands, so on page 115, page 7 of the report, we had asked our comments to Metro Vancouver in regards to having residential in light industrial and such, and it looks like they overrode our OCP. Is that correct, Mr. Johansson?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm just scrolling to that policy. Sorry, that's on page 117 of
115.
115?
At the very bottom, I believe. Yeah, Metro 2050, it's 2.2.9 DVI. Metro includes a new exemption to allow residential development on employment lands in urban centers.
I'll just find that. Mr. Beto may have some comments on that as well. But my understanding is that Metro Vancouver is only presenting that as an option if the city chooses to do that. And as one of the concerns that we brought forward was that If it's not held out as an option, and may, allowing that type of development may outcompete the existing industrial land use and cause erosion of that employment land base.
Okay. Mr. Beto, did you have a follow-up to that, or was that?
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor. That's correct from Mr. Johansson. So in our official community plan, residential uses in industrial areas are not supported with the exception of caretakers dwelling units. However, in the RGS, as you see, it opens the door for municipalities entertaining some limited residential uses within a certain radius of transit services. And so we raised an objection with that, but as has been pointed out, it's only an option. It does not oblige the city to approve multifamily uses in industrial areas, for example. It's only opened up as an option for those municipalities that wish to go that route.
Perfect, thank you. I just wanted clarification on that, that's all. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Any opposed? And that carries unanimously. All right, on to new and unfinished business. We have a motion from Councillor Bahal, tree protection during redevelopment. Did you want to read out the motion, or would you like me to?
If it's good with the mayor, maybe we could have it as presented, and then I could speak to it.
Sure, I just need a seconder. Councillor Wallace. Okay, go ahead.
Great. So we're going through this opportunity of the urban forest management plan. And I think we just want to make sure that we're looking at how we're protecting our trees, especially in a certain zones. So I talked to residents and a little bit back, and there's really strong support, especially as we're redeveloping in our service, commercial, industrial, single family areas, to look at approaches that could retain trees to the extent possible while still allowing development. This is what that is. So as we're developing our urban forest management plan, we're also looking at how we could retain trees. So I'm sure council is well aware that tree retention cannot override development potential, but it's basically just looking at options. So for example, in Surrey, when there's redevelopment, you'll see a couple of significant trees may be retained. We saw on the proposal at 200th Street and 56th Avenue, one tree was retained. So it's just making sure that those options are considered, because I know that there's a lot of concern when you just see a lot completely cleared and no consideration. So this doesn't really bind the city to anything right now, but it just asks staff to look into it as they're going through our urban forest management plan. And I think with climate change and urban heat island effect becoming ever present, is prudent at this time. And since we're already doing it, or since we already have a management plan in the works, that this just gets incorporated. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yep, and it ties in nicely with the regional growth strategy that just came out for ecosystem protection and tree canopy cover targets. So Councillor Wallace.
Thank you through the mayor, and thank you, Councillor Pahal, for bringing in this very important issue forward. And I know that the Langley Township has done a lot of work with their tree protection bylaw, and I think it would be helpful to look at when we talk about we talk about old growth, and we don't have really old growth in the city, but we talk about significant trees and the diameter of trees that exist, and what their properties and what they do for our ecological systems and how important that is. And I know that I've had concerns from some of the residents up in the uplands area, and some of those single dwellings are on large properties with large significant trees that are totally, when it comes to developing a piece of property, that are totally wiped out. And so I think in moving forward, I think we need to have this. So just thank you for bringing it forward, Councillor Pahal.
Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Pahal, for bringing this forward. I think this is a great first step. These significant trees, as Councillor Wallace has said, are a very important asset to our community, and they needed to be treated as an important asset. And I think it's something that we can do a better job of protecting them and trying to encourage development to embrace significant trees in our community and try to protect them at every possible opportunity. So again, thank you.
Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My compliments to Councillor Pahal for drafting this resolution and the way that it was drafted, because it is creating awareness, but it is non-binding. So I will support the resolution because I do not believe that it is imposing on our residents, but it will be benefiting future development moving forward. So thank you very much, Councillor Pahal, and thank you, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you. Councillor Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, and thank you, Councillor Sortaboom. And to be clear, this is not the tree protection bylaw discussion we had about 10 years ago in the city. This is not about telling people they can't chop down a tree on their property today. This is about looking at approaches through new development, to be crystal clear.
You don't want to go back to, I think it was 8 years ago, actually. Councillor Sturtevant, yes, I see your hands.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just following up, I don't expect we'll be getting any, we'll be hearing chainsaws this weekend. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Wallace.
Sorry, thank you to the mayor. I think it's important in moving forward that sometimes we use the excuse when we tear down significant trees when it comes to development. We say, well, we're going to replace them with, you know, we're cutting down two significant trees and we're going to replace them with, you know, 6 or whatever, right? So I think it's understanding the importance of what significant trees provide, and moving forward, I think this will allow for that to happen. So thank you.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. Okay, second motion forward is addition to council acknowledgement statement. This motion is being brought forward by me. The motion is that staff investigate the addition of a word or a phrase from each nation's language to be included in the acknowledgement statement read at the beginning of each council meeting to ensure that their languages live on. Can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Wallace, and any discussion on this? Just a little bit of background. This did come up the initial meetings we had with Kwantlen, and they asked us during in chambers, where do we go from here? We were supposed to have some dinners, and they also asked us at the time to include a word or a phrase so that their language is never forgotten in our council chambers. Councillor Wallace.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward, Mayor Val. I just was, you answered the question. The question was going to be in when we bring things forward, especially when it's with the language of Kwantlen, Kaitsi, Matskwi, and Samiamo First Nations, which we are part of, or that we reside on. I'm just careful. I know that Councillor Pahal had put a motion forward with truth and reconciliation and the things that we need to be doing and moving forward with that. And I think this could be one of them. I was just wanting to ask if you have reached out. I know Kwantlen is quite active in their responses. And I just wanted to see if you've reached out to Kaitsi, Matskwi, and Samiamo in this as well. It's a great initiative, and I think we should be doing it, but I was just wondering if they have been approached.
My understanding and discussing with them at different meetings and such, that yes, they look forward to discussing this.
Thank you.
That's why I'm asking staff to investigate.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I believe, let me just double check. Councillor Sturtevant, you are next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for bringing this forward. I can't help but be curious how this will play out. I can't help but wonder if, you know, the people groups who are familiar to the traditional lands where we are all have the same language, or if they have different languages, and then how to pronounce those. And we have to be careful that we're very respectful. I'd hate to be, you know, pronouncing everything all wrong. And sounding really awful to the ear for those who speak that language. And so I'll look forward to the report coming forward. I'll support the resolution to investigate and see what comes of it. And thank you very much for bringing it forward.
Councillor James.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks for bringing this forward. So when I saw this motion, I reached out to some individuals, and my understanding is that there is actually one phrase recognized by all 4 nations that we acknowledge. It's Natsamat, and it means to become one heart and mind. So I actually have the phonetic spelling of it, the pronunciation of it, and the phrase. I wouldn't mind passing this on to staff. That might give them a good head start for whatever it is that they're looking into. So my suggestion is if there's one phrase that captures all 4 nations that we acknowledge, that might be an option as well. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And that's what we're after. Okay, any other comments or suggestions? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. Okay, last one, no, second last one, because we added Councillor Wallace. Addition of flagpoles at City Hall. This is another motion brought forward by me. I'll read the motion that staff investigate the addition of flagpoles at City Hall representing the Katzie, Kwantlen, Semiahmoo, and Masque nations, and the addition of a community flagpole. Can I get a seconder on that, please? Councillor Hall. Any further discussion? I know we have a lot of community events, such as arthritis, big brothers, big sisters. We're always having to pull down one of the flags. So it would be nice to have a community pole by itself so staff doesn't have to continually go pull it up and down. And the flagpoles was brought forward by one of the nations. And if it's not a flagpole, then it could be something else to represent their community. Councillor James, you were up first.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, are you asking for an additional 5 poles to be installed?
That is correct, up to, depending
Up to
on
5.
staff, up to 5, depending on staff.
For the purpose of flying each First Nations that we acknowledge individually on the 4, and then another one for the community events.
For a community poll.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, Councillor Sturtevant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate the initiative. I would prefer to look at the cost. I think that we've talked about this in the past, and council decided that the cost of a courtesy flagpole was prohibitive. So, if council wants to go ahead with this, and I'll support consensus. But at this point, I'd prefer to see some numbers on this cost before moving forward. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and that's one of the things the staff will look at. Thank you very much. Councillor Wallace.
Yeah, thank you to the mayor. I just was wondering if there was a way that we could do what you're asking in a and I don't know what the protocol is, right? So again, I don't know in asking. I always feel like when we present these things, they come from we can't assume how things are done. So I don't want to assume anything. So if I say this, please don't take it in the wrong way. Is there a way that we can fly 4 flags together? Is there something that we acknowledge in the fact that we are acknowledging those 4 nations that are standalone nations, but we do recognize the 4 of them? I love the idea of being able to do this. But I'm thinking of the cost and how could we, do that community poll and maybe another poll. So I'm just trying to think about the costs and then, of course, the importance of doing what you've asked to be done. So yeah, those are my thoughts right now.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's why I'm saying for staff to look into it and investigate and bring a report back on it. Councillor Bahal.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And yeah, I'm definitely excited for staff to explore this. I know you mentioned a little bit earlier that we were invited to with Kwantlen Nation, and I'm wondering with your communications with them, do you think that there'd be an opportunity for us in the next several months to be able to meet with our various nations to, start this good work?
That is a great question. I know with COVID, I believe admin had reached out to them previously, don't quote me on the date, the beginning of the year, and they still were not ready. So we could have staff reach out to them again, just to double check when we can have dinner, hopefully before this term ends would be nice. But we do have to respect their wishes as well. So
For sure. And again, with staff, this might be a perfect opportunity to even discuss, you know, some of these things we were talking about as far as the traditional, I think it's Hunkaminam language greeting that all 4 nations speak, and also talk about, you know, the flagpoles and how that would work. It would be a really, I think, a really valuable discussion and really start to move towards that reconciliation, which I think we need to do. So I really thank you, Mayor, for putting these forward, and hopefully we can, you know, on their timeline, on the nation's timeline, work to get together with them. I think it's so important.
that's exactly it. Is let's put this forward, and hopefully we can start working together again in a friend, not over Zoom. Let's put it that way. Yeah. Councillor James, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you again, Madam Mayor, and thanks for putting this forward. I think we're all in agreement that this is important as we move through the path of truth and reconciliation. I was informed that in order to do this, in order to fly each flag, we would have to have 4 poles, because each nation is required to be recognized on the same level. That's why they create totem poles, and that shows the hierarchy. Just so staff knows as they move along to investigate this, this has been done in other communities. They created 1 flag with all the nations that are acknowledged in their community, but it's heavy duty consultation and approval with all the elders. And it's quite a process that's going to require a lot of looking into. So I am full support of this. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, from what I've learned, that we understand that this is quite the undertaking that we're asking staff to do. Full support of it, but I think it's very important. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Martin.
Well, thank you. Just to follow up what Councillor James said in regards to a totem pole, did you mean, Councillor James, that there was a totem pole that would represent the 4 nations that we acknowledge?
If I may respond, Madam Mayor, through to Councillor James. No, in fact, the example I was given is totem poles have been created for hundreds of years for the sole purpose of showing hierarchy between different nations.
Right.
We have no hierarchy in the 4 nations that we acknowledge. So they would all have to be flown and displayed exactly at the same level on 4 different poles, or we would have to work cooperatively with them to create 1 flag using all of their logos. And they would all have to be in agreement of placement and size and etc., because it's essential that they all be represented equally, the 4 nations that we acknowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Albrecht.
Thank you, Madam, and thank you for bringing this motion forward. I'm totally supportive of it, but to me, it's more important about getting it right. So taking the time and making sure that that we do get it right is the respectful and sensitive way to do it. And yeah, I'm just totally supportive. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that's carries. Okay, our next additional funding request for community event, Councillor Wallace.
Thank you so much. Through the mayor to the rest of council. Community Day is fastly approaching, and co-chair Councillor James and staff, and we're very, very excited about it. It's been a lot of work, and staff has put, oh my gosh, and yeah, it's kind of nerve-wracking, all of the different things that are involved in it. So saying that, the council, the additional funding request for community event, that council allocate $12,000 from the enterprise fund to pay for extra expenses related to the community day event for the following: new work safe requirements pertaining to road closure procedures, increased costs to rentals, children activities, tables and fencing, and entertainment. So that is the motion that the committee is putting forward.
Okay, I need a seconder for that. Councillor James, and discussion. Councillor Sturdivant.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Wallace, for your hard work on this file, and developing a wonderful community day event for us once again after being away for a while. And I'm sure the costs have gone up. I know that the triathlon had to be postponed in some part because of the costs associated with traffic signaling and control. I can't help but wonder if you have any numbers that break down for us so that we can identify, how much is for traffic control, how much is for fencing.
Yes.
How much is...
Yes, I do. Thank you for your comments, Councillor Sturdivant. I am going to defer this to Kim Hilton, Miss Hilton, for that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you through to Councillor Sturdivant. The quote we got back for the traffic control and the management plan is almost half of the money that we were requesting. And that is because they do require flaggers at all the parts that we are blocking off. So Douglas on both sides and Park Avenue. And because it's a Saturday, it is time and a half. So expenses are quite a bit higher, as well as early load in and late load out. So they're long days as well. Increased costs with table rentals, the Party Works interactive games for the children. Tara's got budgeted about $4,500 for those activities. Table rentals and social media and printing and advertising have also increased. So we will be reviewing this as a committee and moving forward for budgeting for next year to see if how we'll proceed in future years. But given the fact that we do have the food truck festival happening, we don't have the capacity within the Douglas Park area itself. We do have to use the roads, and given the wet weather we've had as well, the trucks would be sinking on the grass. So the requirement is to close the roads, and those are the costs associated.
Well, thank you, Ms. Hilton. I appreciate your response. I mean, there's not a lot of numbers there for me to crunch, but I can't help but think that the increase in costs for the community event have increased by what kind of percentage from 2 years ago when we last had it? Do you know?
It was over 25,000 2 years ago when we had our big event. So this is less than that, but currently our budget is 4,000 for a community day event. So we have to review that and increase those numbers.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I thought the numbers were a little bit lopsided, so that makes a little bit more sense to me. And then most of that additional cost will be for the traffic management, I presume.
Yeah, as I said, almost half of that is traffic management of the amount that's being requested. Another 4,500 is for the children's activities like bouncy castles and those sorts of things.
Excellent. Thank you.
That's the bulk of it right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your reply. And thank you again, Councillor Martin or Councillor Wallace, for bringing this forward. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting me speak.
Councillor Wallace, did you have?
Thank you. This is a perfect opportunity for the plug-in for Community Day on June 18th. If everybody wants to come out starting at 11. I think I'm blown away that we have the budget, the only 4,000 budget that we have, with the number of things that will be actually happening on that day, and the fact that this is the city's biggest event aside from Arts Alive. This is the city's largest event, and there is something for everyone at this event. So we are all so excited about it, and I look forward to seeing if that extra funding gets accepted, and appreciate everybody's support. Thank you.
I don't know. I think Mr. and Mrs. Claus would have something to say about being the #1 event in the city and the kids. Anyway, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, any opposed, and that carries. Looking forward to it. All right, on to new business. Public release of motion from May 30th, 2022 closed meeting. Council approved for public release the following motion. That council appoint the following individuals to the Arts, Recreation, Culture, and Heritage Committee for the remainder of the 2022 term. Sandra Reams, voting member representing seniors. Susan Magnuson, voting member representing the Langley Performing Arts Community. Mandy Martin, voting member from the community at large, and Hannah Bennett, voting member representing Heritage. And we are going to go into a motion to hold a closed meeting, that the council meeting immediately following this meeting be closed to the public, as the subject matter being considered relates to items which comply with the following closed meeting criteria specified in section 90 of the community charter. 1E, the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. If the council considers that disclosure could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality. 1K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the council could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the municipality if they were held in public. And 2B, the consideration of information received and held in confidence relating to negotiations between the municipality and a provincial government or the federal government or both, or between a provincial government or the federal government or both and a third party. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Sturdivant, Councilor Wallace, all those in favor, and that carries. So I guess that's the end of the meeting. So motion that the meeting adjourn. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Pahal, Councilor Wallace, all those in favor, and that carries. Have a wonderful evening, everyone out there watching. And Ms. Kenny, you can turn off